The grass is cut. The boys are back in town. The mounds are being manicured to perfection, and the peanuts and cracker jacks are ready in the canteens. The 2025 WCBL season is upon us, and today we'll break down the entire league for you as we look forward to some exciting baseball across the Prairie provinces this summer. I'm your host this summer, Clark Munroe with IKS Media, and we look forward to joining the team with the WCBL. For those who might not know, we are partnering with the league this year to help with a little coverage with your favorite teams across the league, and we're very excited to join the crew and get started. Today we're going to talk about all 12 teams as we look back to what happened last year and look forward to a jam-packed summer of baseball ahead. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels. We'll have you covered from start to finish as the season goes along, and please make sure to subscribe to the brand new WCBL YouTube page. If you search Western Canadian Baseball League over on YouTube, you can find it, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and help our channel grow. The larger our channel grows, the more coverage we can provide and the better coverage you will get for your favorite teams across Alberta and Saskatchewan. But today, it's not about me. It's not about these two guys necessarily either, but they are the stars of the show today. So let's bring them in now. Joe McFarland and Ian Wilson. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
My ego's inflated now.
The real stars of today's show. Joe, we'll start with you. Obviously, it's an exciting summer. General thoughts as the season approaches us. We're just a couple of days away now from the opening night in WCBL baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, Clark, to me really kind of comes down to how do you top 2024? And I found myself asking that question heading in to the 2024 season after what was a phenomenal 2023. And I have no doubt in my mind that the WCBL is going to deliver on that in 2025. We had a year last year that was a team could beat any other team on any given night, it felt like, and it came right down to the bitter end, you know, a walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth, like storybook to end the season. It's going to be crazy, but I have a feeling every team has been doing everything they can to one up what they did last year, and that's what's got me stoked heading into this summer.
Well, Ian, let's go over to you then. Obviously, same question applies to you. What the excitement is obviously here, but there's some real genuine curiosity about who's going to really emerge this summer.
Yeah, I think I'd love to say Joe is wrong, but last year was a phenomenal season for the WCBL, both in terms of record crowds and excitement on the field. It was as competitive as it gets, and I think the playoffs was just insane last year. So and for me, it's more just all the things you were talking about in the intro there, the fresh cut grass, the smell of that grass, and walking into the stadium on a sunny day, and all the baseball feels that you get in your local community. I'm stoked for those.
Yeah, and I mean, as a baseball player myself, my senior season kicks off this week as we're recording this. So I'm getting excited myself just to get the glove on and throw the ball around and see what's going to happen there. But let's have a look at. We talked a lot about how exciting last season was. Let's start there and just kind of see how we got to where we are today. So let's have a look at how the cookie crumbled in terms of the standings last year. As you can see in the West, Sylvan Lake really dominated last year. Okotoks had a great season as well. Those two teams duked it out in the playoffs. We'll talk about that momentarily. Lethbridge had a really, really solid season. Brooks and Fort McMurray duked each other, battled with each other. Brooks ended up getting the tiebreaker and making the playoffs. And then, as you can see, that was the Edmonton Prospects, but we have rebranded it now to the Energy City Cactus Rats. They had a 12-44 season, but obviously a lot of changes this summer. We'll talk about that momentarily. In the East, the Regina Red Sox really had a good time over in the Eastern Division, finishing first in that division. However, didn't have that great a time in the playoffs, which we'll talk about. Medicine Hat had a 33-23 season, a great season there. The Saskatoon Berries, in their inaugural season, had a really, really great season, an exciting one, emerging in that community. That community really got behind that organization, so fun to see. They had a 31-25 season. Moose Jaw with a 26-29 season, but they did have a great playoff run. We'll talk about that. Weyburn and Swift Current rounding out the East, not making the playoffs, but some excitement there, and we'll talk about that in a second. But gentlemen, I'm going to let you guys take over in terms of talking about those playoffs because you mentioned how exciting they were. Joe, why don't we start with you? You can break down the West Division for me. Ian, we'll let you talk about the East Division. But Joe, can you tell us how the West Division broke down in terms of who made the finals?
Yeah, I mean, the West was such a crazy one because you start with the Sylvan Lake and Brooks series, and on paper, entering that series, I'm like, is this going to actually be a competitive series? And as it turns out, it absolutely was. Not if it wasn't for Josh Tucker in game one, I think he had 14 strikeouts at home, 4-0 victory, and then game two, equally close in Brooks. That series could have gone either way. In the other series, it was Lethbridge and Okotoks, as you mentioned. Lethbridge had a phenomenal year, like maybe the quietest 36 win season of all time, and took Okotoks to the brink. Extra innings times 5 before Ricky Sanchez suicide squeezed in the winning run in the bottom of the 14th, I think it was. So they get by the hair on their chins. And then it's Sylvan and Okotoks, the series that everybody's waiting for, and it absolutely delivered. Aside from Ricky Sanchez base clearing double, I think it was, that game 3, it was back and forth all series. Okotoks does go on to win and sets up that Okotoks Moose Jaw final. And I got to tell you, like, those 3 series were outstanding from start to finish, and so many different storylines and so much drama attached to them. You were getting a lot of attention, not just from Alberta and Saskatchewan, but across the country, as far as just how competitive and how enthralling that entire playoff run was.
Well, Ian, let's talk about the East. And as you do that, our guys are going to throw up the playoff bracket so you can kind of get a visual of how it all broke down. But why don't you tell us about how the East went?
Yeah, equally exciting on the East. Regina, they head into the playoffs, the best team in the division. And then Moose Jaw, who kind of slow played things all year. Like they had a veteran squad and some players who had still been on their 2022 East Division Championship team. And they just came up clutch at the right time. They kind of steamrolled the Red Sox, which was a bit of a shocker, but any given team on any given day, right? And then the Berries and Medicine Hat Mavericks also they just had a great series. Went to the limit, went the full 3 games, and the Berries pulled out a late inning victory in game 3 in Medicine Hat. And from there, you had what was a really wild series between the Berries and the Moose Jaw Miller Express. You had some double-digit runs, and Carter Beck hit for the cycle in that series, and just back and forth, but no real close games, and until the final game. And Moose Jaw Miller Express just found a way, and almost looked like a team of destiny heading into that final against Okotoks, and that was a rematch of the 2022 WCBL Championship Series, and that one also went the distance, which, as Joe alluded to, earlier in the show, a storybook ending for that, and just a wild third game. You had balls infield balls that went into the dugout, some confusion about plays, and Moose Jaw, they looked like they're out late in the game. They find a way to tie it up, and then Connor Croson steps to the plate, hits a walk-off homer. And that's only half the fun. Like, he stumbles. I'm not even sure he knew. You kind of had the Moneyball moment where he stumbles over first base, and everyone's like, "Get up, get across get to home plate, meet us there. We got some celebrating to do." And just a great story. He's a hometown kid too, so grew up watching the Okotoks Dawgs. So it just had all the feels and all of the. There were so many series that went. There were only 2 series that didn't go the full 3-game distance. So just it's going to be hard to top that in 2025.
Yeah, and you know what? In talking to the coaches of all these teams, you can go check out the WCBL YouTube channel for all of the coaches' interviews. And as we're recording this, but yesterday as you're watching this, you'll have seen Okotoks and Moose Jaw's videos come out, and they talk about those teams last year. And Coach Eric Marriott of Moose Jaw said, you know what? We kind of had a weird year. We had a great team. We just kind of didn't really figure it out until the second half. And then we got hot and got hot at the right time, like you mentioned, Ian. And on the West, Lou Pote said for Okotoks, I just like getting my senior guys out on top. And as we can see in this next graphic that I'm about to show, Okotoks has kind of been doing that a lot lately. They've kind of been, as we mentioned on the top of this graphic, the alpha dogs. The Okotoks Dawgs have won 4 of the last full WCBL championships, and I say full when I mean full seasons. Obviously, the 2020 season was canceled. Obviously, I don't know what was going on that year, but something major happened where the season got canceled. I don't know. But Lethbridge obviously snuck in there with a championship, but otherwise, it has been all Okotoks, gentlemen. Can you just talk about, Joe, maybe we'll start with you. Just talk about the dominance that we've seen from that Okotoks franchise really since 2019.
Yeah, what they've really been able to do is the hometown thing. You mentioned Connor Croson, but I think the big thing for them is they've been able to expose some of those kids to that winning culture really early on, right? I think about Graham Brunner, who's not going to be a part of that roster, but he was like 7 years with that team as an affiliated player for a couple of years, and then became the go-to guy for that team for so long. And they've been able to create that culture of, hey, next man up mentality. And even in the 2023 championship season, for example, they had to lean on a couple of really young guys in Eric Hartman, who's now in the Atlanta Braves system, and Eric Matchey, who I believe is coming back this season, likely to be the shortstop to replace Brendan Luther. Those are 2 guys that you'd ultimately think, okay, well, a couple of high school guys against colleges, I don't know, and they pulled their weight and then some. They've been able to find those academy guys. They've been able to find those right pieces to the puzzle, and it's just been year after year. Going through some adversity, like even talking to Lupo at the end of last year, it wasn't an easy grind. They didn't finish first in the division. They didn't run through the table the whole season through, and they faced some adversity in that Lethbridge series. And it's because everybody's got a target on their back, and they know that going into 2025, it's going to be the exact same thing.
Yeah, I don't think the target's going anywhere, especially this summer. Ian, can you walk me through some of the big names from last season? We have a couple graphics here, both the hitting leaders and the pitching leaders. If you don't mind, let's throw up the hitting leaders now, and maybe you can break down a few of these names for us. Maybe specifically some of the guys that might be coming back this year.
Yeah, Anthony Gilbert had just a phenomenal season in Brooks last year. He was the batting champ, and his 13 homers were also tied. It was a 4-way tie for the home run lead. He is not going to be back, unfortunately, this season. But Jackson Searing, 400 hitter, tough as nails. He got in that playoff series against Moose Jaw. He got hit in the face by a pitch and played. He actually went on base and came around to score that inning after getting hit in the face, and then he went straight to the hospital. So that's the kind of guy Jackson Searing is. He'll be back this year, and looking forward to seeing what he can do. Nathan Houston will be back in the Western Canadian Baseball League, but not in Moose Jaw. He is one of the few players that the Saskatoon Berries have kind of found from across the league and added to their roster. And again, he was approaching a 400 batting average. And just really curious to see what he can do in Saskatoon with I don't know if it is actually a more stacked lineup. Like Moose Jaw had some really good senior players last year, but the Berries are definitely going for it. So we'll see what Nathan Houston can do. Connor Croson, we just talked about him. The one thing I'd note about him, he only played, I think it was 45 regular season games out of 56 potential games. So he actually had a little bit of rest in there. I wonder if he's going to be pushed, to the full games limit, and we can see what he can do. And then Carter Beck, he was your 2024 most outstanding Canadian, 2024 rookie of the year. He's playing great college ball this year. Carter Beck is definitely one that I think you'll see shoot up that leaderboard in a lot of the rankings. And he also had a great playoff too. I think he was a top batting average leader in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, just from seeing some of the numbers from the playoffs, I think he had like a 600 batting average or something like that in the playoffs, which is okay, not bad.
Okay. Higher.
Was it higher than that? Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was video game numbers. Let's have a look at the pitching leaders, Ian, if you can just walk us through, again, maybe some of the names that you might recognize as coming back and being important parts of the league this year.
Yeah, and Colton Anderson, we should point out, he was named the 2024 most outstanding pitcher in the Western Canadian Baseball League. check out that ERA. These are the ERA leaders, but it's under 3. And that's notable because in this league last year, it was a record season for home runs, hits, RBI, basically all the offensive categories. Those records were smashed from a cumulative level. And for Colton Anderson to go out there, starting pitcher, just rack up as many strikeouts as he did. He was near the top of the leaderboard in strikeouts as well, and have an ERA under 3 is just crazy. So he is going to be back in Regina. We're looking forward to see if he can keep that going. Peter Scheim, it will not be back in Medicine Hat. Javier Alejandro, he's been the ace in Lethbridge for a few years now. Had a no-hitter with the Bulls. He's not going to be back either. Ian Heck, this is a guy that is fun to watch. He's a two-way player. He can smash the ball at the plate, and then he can shut you down when he's pitching against you. He's kind of like the Shohei Ohtani of the league, or he was last year anyway. And so it'll be exciting to see what he can do again this season. Matt Whitney, this is another fun one. The Berries have grabbed Matt Whitney. He was, I think, second in strikeouts last year. He's been with Fort McMurray for the last 2 seasons. So we'll see what he can do in his new environment, and we'll see if there's a few more rivals of the Saskatoon Berries this season with all these guys from around the league that they've got. Kenny Jinks will be back in the WCBL, but not as a pitcher. He's back with the Swift Current 57s as their pitching coach, and his little brother is on that roster, so we'll see what he can do. I don't believe Michael Singleton or Daniel Crabtree are back this season. Crabtree will be a pretty big loss because he's been a real workhorse for the Red Sox and just guy who's been near the top of the league in terms of innings pitched the last few years.
Yeah, so one thing, obviously, with pitchers, it's always tough to predict, right? Because a lot of these kids come up here from certain colleges or possibly, being touted by Major League Baseball scouts, but they're on pitch limit counts or pitch counts or some sort of inning limit. And so it's tough to always necessarily predict, but it is fun to see those guys that are coming back that have a proven track record of success and dominance in the league. So those are some names to look for there. Guys, why don't we dive into what we're here to talk about truly, and that is this upcoming season. So guys in the back, let's have a look now just at how the season, the league, I should say, is going to look this year in terms of the divisions. Obviously, nothing's really changed in terms of the divisions, but as you can see on this pretty little map that we have for you here, the West consists of 6 teams based in Alberta. The only real difference from last year is that it's not the Edmonton Prospects anymore. As we mentioned, it is, in case you missed it, the Energy City Cactus Rats, which might be the best name in all of baseball. Great logo, great branding, everything's exciting there. So a lot of excitement coming out of Energy City, aka Spruce Grove. But otherwise, the West division will stay similar, and the East, of course, pull Medicine Hat over there in Saskatchewan from Alberta, and it consists of the 5 Saskatchewan teams. So that's how we look as we start. Let's start, though, guys, in the West division, and we're going to start in reverse standings order from last year. So we will start with the Energy City Cactus Rats. And as you can see, look at that logo. They have some really cool jerseys coming out. I saw some pictures of their jersey concepts. Joe, maybe we'll start with you. Can you talk a little bit about this rebrand for this Energy City team? Now you got the trash pandas. Okay, I see what you're doing here. But can you talk to me about the excitement, I guess, around the Energy City Cactus Rats?
This is my way of tipping my cap to Pat Cassidy and company at the Energy City Cactus Rats. I am a big fan of all the fun names and that kind of stuff. If you haven't checked out John Oliver's skits about minor league baseball teams, phenomenal. I think that's the big storyline, obviously, coming into this season is not just the rebrand, but obviously a new home in Spruce Grove as well. Jordan Blundell does what Jordan Blundell does as far as a coach is concerned, and he's had the last couple of years being the roving home team of sorts, having to set up in Sherwood Park for a few games, or calling home games in Sylvan Lake or in Okotoks, some in Lethbridge over the last couple of years. They've had some bad luck in terms of weather and supply chains and all that kind of thing to get that stadium up and running in Spruce Grove. Now they can kind of see it finally come to fruition, and some of the guys around the team, as far as getting the excitement level back up, they've got some returning players that are going to be back that know what Jordan Blundell brings to the table. Some young guys, some local guys as well. That Edmonton area is always rich with really good baseball talent. I'm excited for day one of the new ballpark in Spruce Grove, but I think I'm more excited about them being able to finally get their footing under them after what's been a tumultuous 4 or 5 years here, and being able to finally call a place home for what feels like forever.
So, Ian, what might fans be looking forward to in terms of some big names maybe returning, or some names that are going to be on the roster this year?
Yeah, one of their top hitters coming back, Arancina, is coming back. He led the club in hits and pretty much all categories, including home runs. He was up there. I think he finished with 12 home runs. They've got a local kid, Hagen, who is a catcher and infielder. So it's good to have some local content and family in the crowds to cheer him on. CJ Lewis is a big bullpen arm who pitched for the Prospects last year. Had some injury troubles last summer, so they're hoping he can step in and be the closer. And it'll be interesting to see. There's so many moving parts up there in Spruce Grove. It's going to be a road team again, but so I think there will be a little bit of grace from the fans there. But as we know, there's no crying in baseball, so eventually they'll have to put a bunch of wins. Exactly.
We got that one. Yeah, we got that one.
They'll have to put some wins together and have a winning product on the field. Like I said, there should be some grace for that this season with everything going on, but then they'll have to start winning like every other team does.
Well, let's move from central Alberta to the northernmost team in the entire league. Of course, that's the Fort McMurray Giants. Joe, what can you tell me about the general outlook for the Fort McMurray Giants?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me and the big storyline going in, again, has nothing to do with the players. This one for me is about Ray Brown returning. And this is a guy, he's a baseball Alberta legend, comes here in 1975, he was telling me, to play for the Edmonton Tigers of the then Alberta Major Baseball League, and somehow finds a home, finds a lady in Lac La Biche, and decides to call this place home, 50 years plus now. He was very successful winning titles with the Edmonton Prospects back in the mid 2010s there, and bringing up the ranks of Eric Sabrowski and Matt Kootenay and some of those guys. And he brought Fort McMurray their first playoff run back in, I think it was 2022. So he's no stranger to the league. You know what you're getting out of a Fort McMurray or a Ray Brown coach team, and that is you play ball the right way. He was calling it, let's go out and play catch. Right? Like get back to some of the basics. Let's stop focusing on the analytics and the data and all those kinds of things. And let's just play catch, have some fun. Make sure that you can go out and look at yourself in the mirror after a game and know that you played well, even if the result doesn't work out well. But I do think that the Fort McMurray Giants, they were one step away, one win away from being a playoff team last year. And I think Ray Brown's the guy that can get that done this year.
Well, speaking of really fun baseball team names, I was talking to Ray Brown in our coaches interview. Again, check out our YouTube channel. That's all on there for you. And one of the things that came up as I was kind of researching him a little bit was that he played at Long Beach State University, which for those who might not know, now Long Beach State is the Long Beach State Dirtbags. So I asked him, are you a dirtbag? And he said, no, I played there before they called themselves the Dirtbags. So that was unfortunate for me. I was really excited. I was going to call him a dirtbag for the rest of the interview, but it didn't work out that way. And of course, dirtbag is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the team name. It's just the team name. But Ian, who are some players that fans can really look forward to for the Giants?
Yeah, Riley Burns is one of the pitchers they've got coming back. He's one I'll be paying close attention to. I similar to Joe, I'm focused on the coaching and not just Ray Brown. Although I do want to point out Ray Brown a couple things. He did guide them to their first postseason berth. He also coached with the Edmonton Prospects way back when, and we were talking about the Okotoks Dawgs and their dominance over recent years. When Ray Brown was coaching with Orv Franchuk in Edmonton, the Dogs weren't so dominant. They would have to go through Edmonton, and that roster who had a guy named Eric Sabrowski, you may have heard of, is now a Major League Baseball pitcher with Cleveland. Ray Brown it was all small ball all the time. It was basics. It was just doing what you have to do and grind things out. And those teams, they would be 500 teams in the regular season. They'd find a way to knock off the Dogs. I'm not saying he can do that with Fort McMurray, but that's the kind of coach he is. And his assistant coaches are two guys that I'm really excited to see what they can bring to the table. Nick Cardinal holds a lot of the pitching records in Giants franchise history, and Tanner Hess was an all-star infielder. So more so than the players on the roster, I'm really curious about what that coaching staff can achieve. And they were tied with Brooks last year. It was a tiebreaker. So there is a playoff spot there for the taking, I think.
Well, speaking of the Brooks Bombers, let's move on to the Brooks Bombers. They, like you mentioned, tied with Fort McMurray in the standings last year, but they did have the tiebreaker, so they were able to make the playoffs from there. But Joe, what can we look forward to generally from the Brooks Bombers this summer?
Well, first off, brand new head coach Dylan DeBrouwer takes over the helm with the Brooks Bombers, and looking forward to seeing what he can bring to that table and improve upon what they've been kind of building in Brooks the last couple of years. Everybody knows it's that short porch at Elks Field that makes it a home run hitter's haven. And so it's always interesting because with Brooks is they have a high turnover this year. There's not a ton of old faces coming back. But looking at some of the stats from some of the guys that they're bringing up from the U.S. or some of the Canadian talent that they're bringing in, they've got some power there. And so the question becomes, who's going to become the next Eric, become the next Jacob Gillis, who's going to become the next Xander Bretza, as an example. I mean, those three guys really on fire the last couple of years, especially with Radicek being drafted by the Miami Marlins last year. There's always intrigue around Brooks and what they can bring to the table, and I'm excited for what what Dylan DeBrouwer and company can get, what they've been able to bring into the roster and what they can bring in as far as the mentality and really enveloping what that Brooks community is all about.
Yeah, I remember seeing some graphics of last year's. Was there not a game last summer that was like 25-21 or something like that? Because it was a windy day and every single fly ball went out of the park or something.
31-26 Lethbridge.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was a while. I remember seeing that, and I remember seeing, I think it's Swift Currents Field. Somebody overlaid Swift Currents Field onto Brooks Field, and it's like it's not even the same sport. But Ian, who can we look really forward to see in the Brooks Bombers uniforms this summer?
One note about that overlay. So that is a little bit deceiving. They have moved out their fences a little bit since then. So I know that the people in Brooks will bristle at you guys have the smallest. They do have the smallest ballpark, smallest dimensions in the WCBL. You know what? Have you ever been to Yankee Stadium? Have you ever heard of the Crawford boxes in Houston?
Yeah,
that's baseball. Both teams play there. I'll say this about the Bombers: they always seem to when we're at this phase of the season. There's not guys that jump off the page to me. Then the season happens, and boom. They've got these great hitters. And of course they're going to take advantage of their home field and they're going to bat that ball around. They also have to pitch there, which is not any kind of fun. But so guys they're going to miss Anthony Gilbert. They're going to miss Jacob Gillis. Those guys were phenomenal last year. We'll see who the new Gilbert and the new Gillis are this year. I'm quite sure that they'll have some guys on the home run leaderboard again. And even their pitching last year, one thing to note, they faced off against the Sylvan Lake Gulls in the opening round of the postseason last year. The Gulls set a record for wins in the WCBL, regular season wins. And it was a sweep by the Gulls, but the Gulls won 4-0 and they won 4-1 in those two games. And the second game, they needed a late push. I believe there was a controversial balk involved as well to get over the finish line and to get past Brooks. So, you can underestimate them, but they grind. They're there. Like I said, I'm not necessarily predicting too much out of the guys on the roster that I see, but as that season goes along, they'll make themselves known.
Nothing says exciting baseball quite like a controversial balk. You'll love that. Let's talk about the Lethbridge Bulls, gentlemen. As I think it was mentioned earlier in the show, one of the quieter 36-win seasons last year, but a great team. And obviously, they're the last team not named Okotoks to win a championship in this league. So let's talk about the Lethbridge Bulls, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, for the Lethbridge Bulls, it's steady as she goes, I think, right? When you think about the coaching staff and the people behind them, they know full well you're going to get a Prairie Baseball Academy driven roster. You know you're going to get a few guys from Vauxhall Academy, and then they're going to supplement it with some really good talent from down south. They had Javier de Alejandro last season or last couple of seasons. He's not there this year, but they always seem to have really good pitching. It's just sort of their brand, their bread and butter. And last year, in talking to both Okotoks and Lake, they're like, man, don't underestimate Lethbridge. Like, they're going to be, and they took Okotoks to the limit and then some. Like mentioned, the game 3 went to extras and then some. Everybody was kind of wondering, hey, are we going to be going home anytime soon? And if it wasn't for Ricky Sanchez with that suicide bunt, they'd probably still be playing. And a big piece of that puzzle was another two-way guy. Ian talked about Ian Heck and Weyburn last year. Jack Kaliski inserted himself as being a real big name for that team. Mound, he came in, I think it was 4 or 5 innings in that game 3 in relief and was dominant there. He can hit the long ball as well. That roster is going to be another fun one to watch, especially from a pitching perspective.
Well, Ian, can you break down that roster a little bit more for us?
Yeah, Joe's right. Kaliski is the star player to watch for sure. He can just kind of do it all. Beyond that, there are some intriguing guys who are coming back, including guys that didn't play for them last year but have been Bulls previously. Levi Abbott is one guy I'm curious about. He led the WCBL in 2021, the year that the Bulls won. That season was an abbreviated season. It was an all Alberta season. So the caliber of player that Levi is going to be facing is going to be much different. But I'm curious to see what he can do. Max Benton is another guy, another pitcher who curious to see what he's capable of. And Carter Clairhout, their first baseman, didn't play last season but played before that. So they've got a couple guys a few guys that I'm just curious to see. You know, it's been a summer since they played. Can they find magic again? So yeah, it'll be interesting. And then with that PBA, the Prairie Baseball Academy feeder system, there's always guys around again that you don't necessarily know too much about, but they're just ready to perform.
It is truly amazing to see how much impact these academies across Western Canada entirely have really had on the development of players in this area and in this region. And there's even some now popping up. We mentioned the Saskatoon Berries a minute ago. They have an academy. There's some academies in Regina here as well, and in Saskatchewan that are popping up. And it's great for all of these players to have this opportunity because, you know, guys, when I was growing up, it was hockey season and then you just jumped onto a baseball field. That's how it was. There was no winter camps, barely. There's maybe like one thing that happened a week before tryouts, and that was it. So it's exciting to see these guys have these opportunities now, and it's obviously showing how much impact it's had, as you guys mentioned, all these names of these academies and all these players that are coming up. But let's move on to a team that does have their own academy, the Okotoks Dawgs. Obviously, we mentioned how successful they've been, Joe. Can you talk about kind of just the outlook as we enter this new season?
I will never, ever count out the Okotoks Dawgs. And even though this year, I don't know if Ian will agree with this, but this year feels like there's a bigger transition than maybe what we've seen in the past in terms of some of the senior guys. There's no Graham Brunner. He's Mr. Okotoks. He's a guy who started every big game, big lefty who always threw 4 or 5 big quality innings for them. I don't think he lost him in the playoffs. Like, this guy was just Mr. Automatic. He's no longer there. Championship MVP Brendan Luther at shortstop, your leadoff guy, graduated. He's playing in Welland right now. So who fills that gap? Tucker Zadunik's gone now. He's graduated, and Caleb Lombard behind the plate. So I feel like there's a bigger turnover than usual, maybe. But I've also, I've learned never to count them out. They've got a really strong recruiting class this year, headed up by a couple of seniors with Logan Grant and Connor Croson. Also, you can look at a guy like Nash Kroll. I mean, they're going to be the Okotoks Dawgs, and Mitch Big Bear Schmidt back. It's Okotoks, man. Like, they're champs for a reason.
Ian, are we looking at another potential repeat here for Okotoks?
So before I came on here, I was looking up four-peats. How many four-peats had happened in this league? And you have to go back to the 1960s of the Saskatchewan Major Baseball League, which was where this league has its roots, and North Battleford to find that. So yes, I agree with Joe. You can never, you just can't count out the Dawgs doing it. But I agree with him. They've lost some major players. Like, they've still got some studs and some beasts on that roster. Last year, when you look at their playoff run, every series went the distance. I kind of compared them to a junkyard dog. They were like, yeah, we're not going to blow past you. We're not going to destroy every team we face, but good luck getting past us. One of the guys who embodied that, one of the guys who was in the running for the postseason MVP, was Ricky Sanchez, middle infielder on that team. He's been there for a while. And you get 2 strikes on him, he doesn't care. He does not care. You can ask Coach Chatwood in Sylvan Lake how it went if Ricky Sanchez had 2 strikes on him in the playoffs. He's still finding a way to get a hit. So it's that mentality. It's those guys. I do think that Graham Brunner and Caleb Lombard, both those guys, losing a catcher like Lombard and a pitcher like Brunner, you don't just replace those guys. Those are going to be big losses. But Okotoks always seems to find a way. Cade Herman is another bullpen piece that they've had for a while. He's not coming back. But they always just seem to have parts. Other years I've compared them to the Big Red Machine. They just, take out one player, put in another player, and repeat. And repeat is what they've done. So we'll see what they can do, but you absolutely cannot count out the Dawgs.
Yeah, and when I was talking to Lou Pote, obviously their coach, he said the biggest key in the X factor for them is culture. The winning culture is just set in there, so we'll see if they can continue it. But speaking of a culture that's really emerged over the last little while, the Sylvan Lake Gulls. Let's talk about them. Obviously, Ian mentioned earlier in the show setting a record for wins last season. Joe, can they do something like that again this year? What do you think?
I think they don't care as long as they beat the Okotoks Dawgs in round 2 of the WCBL playoff. Their hot stove earlier on this spring, and hearing from Akil Samuel and Jason Chatwood, and just hearing what they're talking about is, hey, this is year 5, right? They got that early start in 2021 as an expansion team, kind of soft launched them, and ever since then, it's been them and Okotoks in that division final, and they are over. And so they know it's the monkey on the back. They know that they actually dominated the Dawgs during the regular season last year, and for whatever reason in the playoffs, they just couldn't get that last game. It came down to, as Ian mentioned, one at-bat against Ricky Sanchez, drives it into the outfield, bases clearing double, I think it was, and all of a sudden a 3-2 lead becomes a 6-2 lead, game virtually over, right? This Sylvan Lake Gulls team, talking to Jason Chatwood, he really wants to stress that, hey, these returning guys that they're bringing back, the Josh Tuckers of the group, Jones of the group, the Matty Fungs of the group, they are going to set the tone. And they've got a great recruiting class again, some guys who are doing great things in NAIA and NCAA. This is going to be a team to be reckoned with. But again, they can have a 37-win season this year. They won't be happy unless they are in the final and hoisting the Harry Hallis Trophy at the end.
Well, what do you think, Ian? What's their chances of doing just that?
I hate to tip my cap to my colleague Joe McFarland here, but he's not wrong. This is going to make for a boring preview show if I keep agreeing with him. So
okay, in the East Division, you guys have to disagree on every team. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean Sylvan Lake is definitely capable, and they're very well coached, and they have created a culture there. They just haven't got that last step, that last piece. They've also lost some big pieces. The league MVP, Cooper Zizelski, is not coming back. That's a huge loss. Nathan Flewelling, great up-and-coming player, drafted by the Rays. Sorry, he's too good. He's got to go pro. So, they are capable of finding other guys similar to that. They've proven that. They've recruited well. They've got a good connection with Gonzaga, which is where Coach Chatwood went to school, and that's a very good program. So again, you can't count them out of being competitive. They will be a playoff team. They will be a winning team. The Gulls are going to the playoffs, and we'll see what they have when they get there. Can they just cue into that X factor and get over the hump? And until they do, they haven't. So it's the intrigue is there. It's always there. It was there big time last year. I feel like during the regular season when Sylvan Lake was kind of taking it to the Dogs a bit, Joe and I would talk about it, and we're like, is this the year? And of course it wasn't in the long run, but we're going to keep having those talks. These are the two biggest rivals in the league.
Well, Jason Chatwood, coach of the Gulls, is in rare territory. There are other Hall of Famers that are coaching in this league in various forms of Hall of Fame, but he is one that is in his 30s, and he's in a Hall of Fame. He's with the Colby College Hall of Fame, which I talked to him about in his coach's interview. You can check out on YouTube. Subscribe today. That was a little plug. Just wanted to get that in there. Guys, let's move east. We've talked about the West now. Obviously, some big boppers there at the end, but let's talk about the East and see what we can find from there. We'll start with the Swift Current 57s, coached by Rudy Estrella. Guys, what can you tell me about this year's edition of the 57s, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with Rudy, right? I love chatting with Rudy. Yes. He's just such a bubbly character and such a fun-loving guy. Every player you talk to, I was talking to Adam Court from Swift Current, and he was saying, like, I'm excited because they had a chance to see him as an assistant coach last year. Now they get that chance as a full-time head coach this year. They love the energy he brings, and that's something that they've got a new GM in place there as well. Jamie LeBlanc's taking the reins there. So, I mean, it's going to start there. It's going to be that community involvement piece because they certainly want to get back to the good days of, the 2010s and 2000s and 2010s where they were winning division championships and going on and winning WCBL championships as well. And they're going to be missing some pieces. Like, don't get me wrong, a guy like Kenny Jinks, you just don't replace him. But you've got him as your pitching coach. And, as Ian alluded to earlier, his little brother's going to play on the team. Brody Alexander, they've got some really solid young local guys, much like a lot of other teams. And they've got a really intriguing international class as well. Jose Ayala, as an example, was a home run hitting machine last year. So there's some pieces there that I think, as much as Swift was a non-playoff team and that record wasn't really indicative of the quality of play that Swift Current brought to the table in 2024. And I don't think it's going to be in 2025 either.
Yeah, just before, Ian, I get to you, I spoke to Rudy, and I've known Rudy. I don't remember the exact years he played with the Regina Red Sox, but it was, 10 years ago-ish now. And I remember him being that scrappy little relief pitcher. He's not very big in stature, but man, was he exciting to watch as a pitcher. I can only imagine how that translates into coaching and the style that he brings to his team. Ian, can you talk about maybe that a little bit more, and some of the guys that you mentioned, that maybe even Joe mentioned, but that might be on the roster this year?
Yeah, in that interview that you did with Rudy, he used that word scrappy and said, yeah, that's the team that I'm going to have. It's going to be a scrappy team, and they're going to have to be, because they don't necessarily have the dogs. And I'm not talking about Okotoks, just they just don't have those beasts. They do have, apart from the Jinx brother connection between coach and player, they've got two Ayala brothers, and one of them, as Joe mentioned, was a big home run hitter, the outfielder, Jose Ayala. So they'll need that. They'll need the home runs that they can get. Brody Alexander is the local kid, and he's been around forever, so he's the veteran guy. He'll probably need to bat as good as he has in his life for that team to have success and to turn the corner. And I hope they do turn the corner. They have a winning history going back to the Joe Carnahan days when he was playing and coaching there. They were a highly successful team. As Joe mentioned, Brad Woods has taken a step back as president of the team. Maybe they need something like that to turn the page. I know Brad Woods cared deeply for that organization, and he didn't come to that decision easily. But maybe with Jamie LeBlanc stepping in, they can have some fresh eyes. they can make it a winner off the field as well, right? Fill the stands a bit, rejuvenate the franchise, and and find a way to get to the playoffs. That postseason bar is attainable, I think, for all teams in the WCBL. You got to go out there and take it. And Rudy, the one thing, getting back to Rudy real quickly, he was the head coach with the Brooks Bombers. That's the smallest market in Alberta. So he's used to being in these situations where, you don't have the resources of some of the bigger teams. And I'm curious to see if he learned anything from that time in Brooks and can kind of adapt some of the learnings there in Swift Current and at Mitchell Field.
Yeah, obviously the 57s have a long history of some great successful teams in the past. So we'll see maybe this year as they can start getting back to those ways. The Weyburn Beavers, Joe, obviously with Cam Williams at the helm, it's a great little community there. They just had, now I'm coming from a hockey perspective here just because I work in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League as well, but they just had a really great run with the Weyburn Red Wings in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, making it all the way to the finals. What are the odds the Beavers might be able to pull something out of their hat this summer, Joe?
You know what? I'm looking at it the same way as I looked at it last year with Moose Jaw. And here's the number 4 team. Everybody kind of wrote them off, especially going up against the East Division champion in Regina, and they go and sweep them. Like Ian alluded to, all you need to do is get in. And Williams at the All-Star break last year, when they were just on the cusp of, they've just finished losing 16 or 17 in a row. And he's like, I can't be down about it because we've just not gotten a couple of bounces. He said, I think 5 games were 1-run ball games. Another 4 were 2-run ball games. He goes, if we get a break in a couple of those games, now all of a sudden we're talking about like a legitimate playoff run. And I think he's really aiming towards that again this year. And he's got some familiar faces around him, and not the least of which being he's a favorite because he's always willing to jump on and chat with us. Ethan Webster's been a stalwart of that pitching rotation for a few years now. He's coming off his best season at the University of Calgary. He's the CCBC Pitcher of the Year, a sub 2.5 ERA in 8 starts. I think he went 3-2 on a University of Calgary Dinos team that wasn't very good. And so if Ethan Webster, he says he's found his confidence. If Ethan can bring that forward, wins. He's been able to guide them that way, and from there you go on. We talked about Ian Heck earlier, but there's a strong returning core. There's some really intriguing young talent that Cam Williams has been able to bring forward. This is going to be a team I think to watch this summer.
Ian, do you agree with that? That this team could be maybe a sneaky dark horse for the East Division?
I do, to a degree. I really actually kind of like their pitching. I think between you've got Webster, as Joe mentioned, McConnell and Meyer are all big innings eaters. They have their top 4 arms from last season in terms of innings pitched. So I think they actually, with another year under their belt, will see what they can do. But I kind of like that they've got that backbone on the mound for this season. In the infield, they've got Ryan Dauphiné, who's last year became the all-time games leader, at-bats leader, and hits leader. I think he took the hits title from his coach, Cam Williams there. And he's been an all-star for a few years. He was in the home run derby representing the Beavers a few years ago. So I kind of like some of the ingredients they have there. Brian Musalar is one of the infielders that they'll lose. He was also a very dependable presence. I believe he's pursuing some pro opportunities. But I kind of think they may go as Ian Heck goes. I think he's going to be such a huge part of that team, and if he can not even be better than last year, if he can kind of have the same year he did last season, and then everyone can elevate around him, then I think they'll be in that mix for a playoff spot.
Well, speaking of a team that did make the playoffs last year and quite a good, impressive run, we've talked about it a couple times kind of indirectly, but the Moose Jaw Miller Express, coached by Eric Marriott, obviously a very fun run last year. But as Eric mentioned in his coach's interview, maybe just a little inconsistencies throughout the year, but he thought they were one of the better teams in the East overall. Joe, do you think that this could be a year where maybe they find some consistency with that roster?
That's a great question. And one of the bigger question marks that kind of lingers over the Okotoks Dawgs too is what is the impact going to be of one of their big departures? And Nate Mensick, that two-headed monster of Nate Mensick and Austin Gurney, with no Nate Mensick as he's graduated and gone pro. Can Austin Gurney carry the load, and who's going to do it with him? They've certainly done a great job recruiting. Looking at some of the numbers from some of the fresh faces, again, you don't know who's going to be penciled into what positions, or who's on innings counts, or who's on at-bat counts, or that kind of thing. So it's always hard to imagine at this point. But there's some really intriguing bats in that lineup that I sit there and go, maybe they've got a shot at it. They do lose Nathan Houston. We'll get to Saskatoon in a bit as well. He was a plus 300 hitter. So, I mean, you do need to fill some gaps there. But I think Eric Marriott and company have done a great job of bringing a culture forward and an expectation of here's how we're going to play the game. And Eric's been there. He was a player with the team, so he knows what the community expects. That place was absolutely electric for game 2. Felt like the place was going to cave in. It was so crazy and loud. And when they did come through and win that ball game, and I can't imagine what that community is going to be like if they do win a championship. But you get the sense that Eric Marriott's going all in this year, knowing that they came so close last year. There we go.
Yeah, Roswell's growing up in this area, one of my favorite ballparks to play in, to be in, to watch baseball in. It's such a fun, the sound of the bat, because it's all made out of cement, it just echoes, it reverberates perfectly. It sounds great. But Ian, I guess, what are your thoughts on some of the roster departures? Because I know there's some big ones like Joe mentioned, but maybe who might be the ones to fill those holes?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with you on the ballpark. I got a chance to visit. We did a family trip out to Saskatchewan last year, and I really loved Roswell's Park. It just had that old school. You felt like you were in middle America, coming to the Diamond. They got the murals outside. So shout out to the Diamond. And I got to give them some love, because I'm probably going to take some heat here, but I think they're going to take a step back this season. I think some of those departures are really going to hurt. And, you mentioned Nathan Houston. Not only is he leaving and not going to be with the Millers, he's going to be with Saskatoon. So that's a big blow right there. Nate Mensick, man, what a gamer. Like, that guy was so awesome for them and such a clutch hitter. His batting average wasn't always high, but he just came up big in these moments over the last few years. And he was such a good player. I think on the mound is really where they're going to miss some key guys. Matt Vasquez and Ethan Merck was the league leader in wins a couple of years ago, and those guys ate up a lot of innings. So I just Takeo Cookson, I don't think is back, is my understanding either. I think their pitching is going to be a little bit worse. I'm not saying they won't necessarily make playoffs. I don't know if they can go on a big run like they did this year. And no disrespect to Eric Marriott or Mike Gonzalez, the coaching staff there. I think they will do everything they can to get to the playoffs and go on a bit of a run. But I just think some of those players, I don't know if Austin Gurney, he's great, but I don't know if he can carry the load. Him and Thomas Soto are some of the guys coming back. I don't know if it's going to be quite enough to get them where they want to go.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of holes. But one thing about a league like this one that does have quite a bit of turnover, just because of, there is an age restriction. You can only be here so long. It breeds opportunity. So Moose Jaw maybe is a team that we might see some new opportunities open up for some players. And we'll be talking about them in the season preview next year in terms of guys who are impact players. We'll see. Let's move on to the team. We kind of talked about them a few times. Saskatoon Berries. Now I'm going to equate them to the Golden State Warriors of the WCBL. They were a good team last year, and now they're bringing in a couple All-Stars just because they can. So, Joe, can we talk about the Berries? There seems to be a lot of hype around this team this summer.
There is a lot of hype, and I think there was a lot of hype regardless because of how well they did, not just from a ball playing perspective, but also from the brand perspective. Like, everything they did was very methodical and very well done, right? Like encapsulating that minor league baseball experience to a certain extent, whether it be the branding on the ball caps, the color scheme, or just what they do at Cairns Field, right? Like they've done everything really well. That ownership group deserves all the kudos in the world. And their big splash right off the bat, the first signing they announced, Carter Beck, the guy who becomes the kind of the hometown hero of sorts from Carnduff. He's been a big bopper at Indiana State this year. He's an all-conference guy. And then you add in all the pieces we've talked about before: Clever Martina, Matt Whitney, Nathan Houston, Ethan Murdoch's coming back after a year away from the WCBL. He was an all-star with the Swift Current 57s 2 seasons ago. Like, those guys, you sit there and you go, that three-headed monster in the outfield of Murdoch, Jalen Freeman, and Carter Beck, if they stick around all season, it's going to create all kinds of nightmares for pitchers. I have them as an early favorite coming into the season based on what their roster looks like now and the guys that are able to return. The question is, can Joe Carnahan turn the corner on this, fresh team, their sophomore season, and turn them into a WCBL champion?
Very fresh. They are very fresh.
Very.
Ian, what do you think about the roster, how it's shaping up, and some of the big moves that have happened over the offseason?
I think they have the best outfield in the league. The guys that Joe just mentioned, Murdoch and Beck and Freeman. That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with in the lineup. You add in Nathan Houston to the batting order. Look out. Their 1 through 5 might be the tops in the league. And I think they have the best starting rotation, going out and getting Whitney and Clever Martina, and they're probably gonna. I just think they're gonna be a force. And one thing I like about what they've done is well, I gotta be careful how I say this, but I'm curious to see how many rivals they've created. You got Carter Beck was in the Weyburn system prior to the Berries arriving, and he did not play there, so. They ended up losing out on Weyburn. Ended up losing out on keeping Carter Beck. That's the way it goes. No one did anything wrong there. You just went to Saskatoon. Now you get Ethan Murdoch, who was with the 57s, and Clever Martina, and they are both going there. You get Matt Whitney. Hey, we're looking way up north at Fort McMurray. We like that pitcher. You had the top 2 pitchers in terms of strikeout totals from last season, and I'm just, like I said, I'm curious about the rivalry factor. Are they? When you get on the diamond, you don't necessarily want to make any friends, but we'll see if it all mixes together well, because they're not messing around. They are not messing around at all. Everything they've done in the off season says, we're not thinking about making playoffs. We want a championship. So let's see if they can do it.
Well, yeah, 2 things on that. First off, Joe Carnahan, as I mentioned, has some of the most success in the past when this league used to be called the Western Major Baseball League. In the Wimble with the Swift Current organization, he had a ton of both player and coach success. Now taking the reins, I asked him in his coach interview, first year, obviously, you're just trying to get into it, everything. Do you have any rivals? And his answer was everybody. So I think that attitude might continue, as you're kind of alluding to, Ian. Let's move on to the team they played in the playoffs, the Medicine Hat Mavericks. Obviously, the only Alberta-based team in the East Division, but they are obviously pretty close to a few of the Eastern teams, so that makes sense. But Joe, can you break down what Medicine Hat looks like? I think a fresh head coach. So what's Medicine Hat looking like?
Yeah, you mentioned Coach Thornhill, and I think it starts there. But any team that Greg Morrison puts together or wants to have on the field at Athletic Park is exactly as advertised, right? They're going to, I'll call it nickel and dime you for better or worse. And 2 years ago, it got them to a WCBL championship. And last year, obviously, fell a little bit short. They've got some returning guys that are really intriguing to watch. I'm a big fan of Jaden Babiak. He's a Spruce Grove kid, I believe, or St. Albert, that area. He's a utility guy. He can catch. He can play shortstop. He's bringing up some friends from Valley City State University, which has been a very productive program down in the NAIA for a few years now. So, I mean, there's that intrigue that always comes with Medicine Hat. And I was chatting with a couple of guys down there post the Medicine Hat Tigers winning the WHL championship. And I said, how cool would it be to be that guy, right? Tyler Van Este, actually, I was chatting with him about it. He said, we've got that marked on our calendars, right? Like they want to be a part of the City of Champions in southeastern Alberta. And certainly we know what to expect out of a Medicine Hat Mavericks team. And even if they've got some turnover compared to last year, I have full anticipation this is going to be a playoff team again this year.
Well, Ian, what might their roster look like on the field when the games kick off? Just as you're watching this tomorrow, we got Game 1 coming up. So, what might the Medicine Hat Mavericks look like on the field?
I have some concerns similar to Moose Jaw that they might be taking too much of a hit on their roster from last season. Peter Scheim, their top pitcher, he's not back. Jordan Phillips and Marshall Burke, who were tied for the league lead in hits last year, they're not back. Nick Thibodeau, their power hitting catcher, who was up there in home runs last year, he's not back. Yes, they have Tyler Van Ness. They've got all the Volcano brothers for the infield duty, and maybe a little bit outfield. So I'm not as bullish on who they've got on the roster this year. But having said that, they do tend to find a way to just compete every year. And Brody Gardner, that's another guy who's not coming back in the outfield. Yeah, it's a different roster from when they were in the championship final in 2023, and I'm not sure. Again, I think they'll be a playoff team. Will they make noise in the playoffs? They'll have to come together pretty quickly and pretty well to make that happen.
We'll make it to the dance, and who knows? We saw it last year, right, guys? So who knows? We'll see. But keep an eye maybe on Medicine Hat early in the year. Maybe see how that first few weeks plays out for them. Might be telling. To see what they're going to end up being. Last one here now as we enter the final team of the Eastern Division that we want to talk about, the Regina Red Sox, finishing first last year. They're bringing back a few very important players. But Joe, what do you think about the outlook for the Red Sox this summer?
Yeah, real quickly on the Medicine Hat side of things is I was just thinking about this is when even the first couple of weeks of that 2023 run, they weren't the greatest team going into the All-Star break, and they really caught fire. Right. So I'm very careful not to judge a book by its, first 3 or 4 weeks cover, because Moose Jaw did it last year too, right? They think the teams that really do well come championship time are the ones who are hot post Canada Day. And Regina certainly kind of did the opposite last year, right? This is a team that essentially ran the table in the East Division, and then come playoff time, run into a red hot Moose Jaw Miller Express and are swept out. So I know Rypathakos and company don't want to repeat that. And it's going to start with their offense. And they've done a big time job of basically taking that entire LSU Shreveport roster, which features Jackson Searing and company, and said, come on up here and we'll win a championship together. Because that was an offensively laden Shreveport team. And Jackson Searing's bringing some friends. So it's going to be a fun roster to watch in Regina this year. And again, I think they have a little sense of unfinished business from last year because they bowed out so quickly during the playoffs.
Okay, Ian, so who are some of those friends that we might see coming up from the Shreveport Mafia?
I'm less worried about the Shreveport Mafia, and I'm more I just think Colton Anderson coming back is huge. I think he was so good last year, anchoring your starting pitching. And Jackson Searing was, I just love the grit, and he's a football player. You can tell he's played football by the way he plays and taking fastballs to the face and then going to score a run. The whole mentality. And Rypathakos does a great job. He's just recently been named an inductee into the Saskatchewan Baseball Hall of Fame. So he does a great job on recruiting. Odie Singer is one of their pitchers who's been very consistent for them. I just think they'll be consistent, steady, good. You know what you get from that team, and it's fairly consistent play. So I think Regina's they'll be just fine in the East this year.
The only thing they need is a new stadium. And I was at their banquet a few weeks ago. Actually, Mark Stiles was there. Shout out to Mark Stiles. But that was kind of the running joke of the entire night was, Energy City's getting a new stadium, and kind of just did that. Some other teams are getting new stadiums.
Yeah.
So
that's not even a real city, and it's getting a stadium.
Exactly. So it's about time. So if anyone's listening, because I am here in Regina, new stadium, that's on the wish list, but we'll get there one day. But guys, we talked about all 12 teams now, so now it's time to put on your prediction hats. So, guys, let's start with you've kind of already mentioned it, each of you, at some point, but who do you think your regular season favorites are? Let's leave the playoffs out of it because obviously by that time of year, so much changes and some guys are done playing, some guys leave, whatever. But out of what we see right now, who would you say is a favorite? Joe, we'll start with you.
Oh, regular season favorite. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I really like what the makeup of is for the Lethbridge Bulls. I think that they are quietly going to be they're not getting as much noise, quote unquote, as maybe Okotoks or Sylvan is. And if they put together the same kind of season that they had last year, they've got some guys returning who were young players last year. I think about two guys in particular. One, Seamus Ryan, Calgary kid who went down. I think he's committed to North Dakota State University. He had a sub-1 ERA in like 23 or 25 innings of work last year. He's going to be a sophomore. And if he's learned a few things, watch out because he's going to be lights out. The other guy I think about is Noah McNeil, who's a catcher with Prairie Baseball Academy, coming off an all-star season there. Kind of same sort of deal as Ethan Webster at University of Calgary and with Weyburn. That's a team that I look at and go, they could quietly just do their thing and be a top contender and walk into playoffs to do what they need to do to win it all. Out in the East, I know we're all going to look at Saskatoon and go, man, that's a mammoth team. If there's a team that is quietly going to do their business, is Regina. I do think that they haven't seen much of a step back. I do think that they're going to be a more offensive-based team this year. You add in that pitching staff, and they're going to be a handful for those Saskatoon Berries.
Ian, what about yourself?
In the, I'm going to sound really boring in the West Division, but I think Okotoks Dawgs win regular season. They win the regular season division title. I think the machine is not broken, so there's nothing to fix there. They've got some bodies gone, but I think they win the regular season. And yes, I'm alluding to the postseason predictions later. But I think Okotoks comes out on top in the regular season in the West. And I agree on Regina. I actually do think Regina just finds a way to just consistently and steadily get the East Division regular season title nailed down.
Okay, let's go with, before we get to championship favorites, let's go, who do you think the top hitter will be? Just throw some names out there. You can say more than one if you want. But, Joe, who do you think might be one of the top hitters this year?
I'm going to go Connor Croson. I think the guy, so he's got a couple of different things going for him. One off another all-star season with Montevallo University. He's also entering the transfer portal. So he has something to prove, I think. And he was a 380 or 360 hitter last year. Bananas. And he's added a little bit of power. He's got the feels, all the feels from hitting that walk-off home run in the championship. He's the guy I've got my eye closest on.
Ian, what about yourself?
I think all the attention in the league, particularly in the East, is going to be on Carter Beck. And I think for good reason. I think he's probably the top name to watch if you think about it in terms of hitters. But I think Ethan Murdoch is actually going to come out on top, and he's gonna benefit from batting around Carter Beck. So Ethan Murdoch is the guy I'm most curious about. I'm fascinated to see what he can do after a year away from the WCBL.
Awesome. That's going to be exciting to watch. What about pitchers, guys? Joe, we'll start with you. Who do you think might be a guy who could maybe lead the way in the pitching categories?
I feel like the easy answer is the guy who's the reigning WCBL pitcher of the year, obviously. And so I'm not going to go with Colton Anderson because that just seems like a bit of a layup to me. I'm really intrigued by what Adam Court brings to the table in Swift Current. He's a homegrown kid. I think this is his second year now with the 57s. He's got a new head coach. Chatted with him a little bit earlier on in the offseason. He says like he's super excited about. He's coming off an all-conference season down south as well. There's just something about him being able to lean on a Kenny Jinks, to lean on a Rudy Estrella, and maybe do some damage because Swift's quietly been able to produce some really high quality pitching talent. And I think the homegrown Munster native is going to be one to reckon with this summer.
Yeah, the Munster baseball storyline is crazy. It has exploded there. Ian, top pitcher for you?
The pitcher I cannot wait to see, and he just shredded opponents last year, particularly in the postseason and in the regular season as well. Not a starting pitcher. It's Ashton Loera of the Okotoks Dawgs. This guy was electric. He was insane, and he was shredding batters basically on 2 pitches: fastball, curveball. Guys couldn't touch it. He's got other pitches. Maybe we'll see them this year. I think he'll be the saves leader in the WCBL, and I just think he's going to be. And he is also one of those exciting guys. He gets pumped up. He looks skyward. He pumps his arms when things are going well, which is usually if he's on the mound, things are going well. So I cannot wait to see Ashton Loera take the bump again this summer.
Well, until somebody starts doing the splits after they get a strikeout, like that one guy in the spring training, Bryce remembers who it was because he was a Rockies. Bryce is a Rockies guy. Our director, Bryce, there was a Rockies prospect. I think they found him in some senior league, and he was doing the splits after every strikeout. So we got to get that going for somebody this summer, guys. I'm gonna wrap this up with you guys by asking for your final thoughts, and within these final thoughts, maybe you can kind of slide in who you think the championship favorite might be for you. But Joe, let's go. Final thoughts for you, and maybe any last words you want to talk about for the 2025 season.
Well, like I said, last year felt like any team could beat any other team on any given night, and there's no reason to believe that that's not going to be the case again this summer. When you look at the recruiting classes, when you look at some of the go really deep into the research numbers and go, oh, that guy just hit 17 home runs in a high NCAA school. Cool. Right, like there's going to be some undoubtedly, as it always happens, there's going to be some guys who just come exactly as advertised, and so that's the exciting part about the season coming up. As far as who I think could be in the championship game, I actually will go on the record to say I think the Okotoks Dawgs deserve to be number 1 in the power rankings in week 1 because they've done nothing to diminish themselves from that spot. I think they make it again. Will it be a win? I'm going to say maybe not. And I'm going to say the Saskatoon Berries find a way to put it all together and claim that championship. Going out on a limb, I know I'm going to make 11 enemies, but I've been wrong 98% of my time. So go with that.
Your face just popped up, Joe, on 11 dartboards, and coaches are just throwing darts at your face, which is okay.
That's all right with me.
If you're gonna be the guy to spice up the season, let's do it. Let's do it. Give them some fuel for the season. Joe, Ian, what about yourself? What are your final words? Maybe your final thoughts on that championship.
It's more final hopes for this season ahead. Of course, baseball. We're not playing in arenas. We're playing outdoors. I'm hoping for really good weather. Hoping that forest fires can keep at bay, and we get some just some clear skies and great weather and great fan attendance as well, because that always makes it better when you've got a full house and you've got you can barely hear the beer seller barking out what he's got in his bucket for you. So that's one of my hopes in terms of predictions. And I do want to point out, before I put a target on my back like Joe did, I'm loath to make predictions. These it's nearly impossible to do because you really don't know much about any of the newcomers or any of the innings limits or at bats limits. You don't know who's going to be there come playoff time. But in the spirit of what you've put together here and what we're trying to do, my prediction is Okotoks will not be in the final. Earmuffs, Dawgs fans. They will not be in the final. Sylvan Lake will come out of the West. And I hate agreeing with Joe, but I think the Berries come out of the East. And they are going to tick off the entire league by winning the championship. They're going to tick off all the teams that they got players from, but they're just going to be too darn good. And they're just going to, they're going to figure it out. Joe Carnahan is going to celebrate yet another championship. And it will come at the expense of the Gulls, who figure out the Dawgs finally, but then have a new rivalry emerge.
I love it. I love it. That's something to look forward to, some excitement there. And it all kicks off, guys, on the 28th as we get the season opener between, we mentioned, the Okotoks Dawgs and the Medicine Hat Mavericks. Wednesday, May 28th. It's a 7:05 first pitch at Athletic Park in Medicine Hat. Fantastic ballpark. You guys mentioned it, but I've played there myself. Love that ballpark. It's fantastic. And, of course, it's all presented by our friends at Fortis, Alberta. They are the opening day and opening week sponsor for the WCBL, so thank you to Fortis, Alberta. And then, guys, as we move forward into the weekend, we actually have some graphics as well for those games. So as you can see on Thursday, the 29th, we have 4 games across the league. Regina hosts Swift Current, Sylvan Lake hosts Energy City, Weyburn hosts Saskatoon, and Medicine Hat hosts Moose Jaw. On Friday, we have 5 games. Brooks hosts Lethbridge. I'm getting my logo test here today. Swift Current hosts Medicine Hat, Moose Jaw hosts Saskatoon, Weyburn hosts Regina, and Fort McMurray hosts Sylvan Lake. On Saturday, a full slate. All 12 teams are in action in 6 games across the league. I'll let you look at the logos for this one. And then on Sunday, another 5-game day featuring Okotoks and Lethbridge in the top left there. As you can see, it's an all matinee day for the WCBL. So it's time now to get your tickets. As if you're a fan of your team, get your tickets now. If you don't have season tickets, get your tickets. But new to this year, there's a bit of a change for those who might be used to watching on home team in the last several seasons. Our broadcast partner with the WCBL this year is Flow Sports, aka Flow College. So you're going to be able to watch all the games on there, but make sure you get your subscription to Flow College. You can find the WCBL listed there, and all 12 teams will be available to watch on Flow College. You can check it out and get your subscription there. We'll be talking about Flow College a lot this summer. Guys, couldn't have done this show without you. Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you so much, Ian. Appreciate you guys, and enjoy the baseball this summer. It's going to be a blast, and I'll speak for you guys on this one. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate your interest in the league, and obviously there's a lot of excitement coming up, so stay tuned for more content throughout the summer, and we'll see you guys at the ballpark. Bye for now.
I heat up the ice cubes. It's the best of both worlds.